Good to have you all here this evening. I see everybody coming in. Wonderful. Good, good, good. Happy Sunday afternoon or evening. We're glad that you chose to spend part of your weekend with us on this holiday weekend. So hopefully folks will be able to sleep in tomorrow. Um, as always at PBC, we like to start our professional development workshops on time. We want to make the most of our time with you. So I will be brief. My name is Kamala Allen. I'm the president, and I have the honor, I should say, of being the president of the Parliamentarians of Bucks County. We are thrilled to be able to be with you this evening. We have one of our affiliate members who we are constantly trying to steal. We feel like she's a regular member, but she's one of our affiliate members. We have Dr. Twylah Jenkins with us, who is going to be presenting to you this evening. So before I go into her topic and her bio, I do see that we have our state president, Twylah. Oh, wait, do we lose Twylah? She's popping into another window. Are we good? Okay. We have our state association president, Thelja Garrett, with us this evening. So I would love to give her a moment just to bring brief greetings to everyone before we move into our content for tonight. President Garrett?
Good evening, President Allen. I know it's the T's. It's the T's, right? It's the letter T. But two, I do not want to take time from the presentation tonight, but certainly welcome everyone to one of our units here in the Pennsylvania Association, Parliamentarians of Bucks County, one of which I am so proud of, and the work that they have done under President Allen's leadership. And of course, the presenter this evening is the secretary for PAP. So you are in for a treat this evening. So welcome everyone. And turn it back over to President Allen.
Thank you. We appreciate you spending your time with us this evening as well. So with that, everyone, and I see lots of familiar faces, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and I invite those of you who are officers of other units to just briefly bring greetings. I think we have some association presidents here and maybe other unit presidents. If you'd like to take a moment just to bring greetings to everyone, I welcome you and invite you to do that right now.
I'll start really quick. President Anthony Thompson from the Parliamentarians of Nassau Suffolk County from District 1. Always a pleasure to be on with PBC. Just looking forward to the presentation. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. Did I miss anyone?
Jonathan Jacobs, the current Vice President of the Delaware Valley Unit.
Wonderful. Glad to have you, JJ.
Greetings.
I bring you greetings from Parliamentarians of Westchester, New York. I am Regina Williams, and I am the Vice President, as well as the Treasurer of the New York Association of Parliamentarians.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Did I miss anyone else?
I bring you greetings, Novella.
Okay. Well, we are going to jump right into our presentation for this evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Twylah Jenkins, PRP. She is a newly minted professional registered parliamentarian. We're extremely proud of her. She's been a member of NAP since 2019. She earned her registered parliamentarian credential in February 21 and her PRP in December of last year. Her parliamentary background and interests grew out of her desire for structured and efficient meetings and for fairness and respect for all members. Dr. Jenkins is continually deepening her parliamentary knowledge by serving, as President Garrett mentioned, Secretary for the PA Association of Parliamentarians. She also serves as Secretary for the Parliamentarians of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We lovingly refer to as Triple P, which is her home unit. She serves as the chair of the Governing Documents Committee for the Howard County unit, and she is absolutely an involved and contributing member, as I mentioned, of PBC as one of our affiliate members. She's also a part of the Green Gavel electronic unit and a member of the American Institute of Parliamentarians, and finally secretary of the Parliamentarian Toastmasters. So with that, I turn it over to PRP Jenkins to bring our content for this evening.
All right. Good evening, everyone. And as you know, we have been on a journey in the life of our motion. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
You're all good. Perfect. Okay. So today we're going to take a little pit stop, and we are going to diagnose and fine tune our motion, just how sometimes you have to pull over when you're on a trip and kind of do some things to, either fix your car or get it ready for that second half of the journey, because we are not done with our motion yet. Our time together, we're going to spend some time just doing a quick review of our main motion before proceeding into understanding the nuances of perfecting a motion, which is going to be by amend, we are going to substitute, and we're going to look at division of a question. And I know sometimes amend can get a little tricky. You get confused if you're in a meeting. Substitute might be one of those things that you're like, oh, I've never done that. And then division of a question, you may have thought about it, but may not quite know all the nuances to do it. But by the end of our time together, you'll be able to identify ways to amend a motion to make it tailored and perfect for what you're trying to achieve. Be comfortable by going through the process of amending a motion. And also, we're going to wrap up with you having an understanding of the process to substitute a motion. And hopefully by the end of our time together, you will be so motivated that you will try to substitute a motion either in one of your unit meetings or in another organization that you are a part of. So the pending motion that we have before us is we want to have a holiday brunch fundraiser in the fall. Let me ask you something. The last time that you presented a motion, did you write out your motion before you presented it to the assembly? Sometimes you don't have the amount of time to write out a motion, or you can maybe ask the chair if we could stand at ease for a second so that you could write out the motion and really make sure that what you're proposing is very clear and concise. It's helpful, but sometimes may not always be that practical. Sometimes it's just, you just do the motion that comes what's top of mind. And that's where you may miss out some very critical information that causes the debate to get very extensive, or people are very unclear and not comfortable with adopting the motion. Because as we know, those three magic words, I move that, gets you what you want in an action done in a meeting. But we want to make sure that whatever motion you propose actually gets what you need done. So we're going to do a diagnostic check. So let's look at that main motion. I move that we have a holiday brunch fundraiser in the fall. Okay. Does this motion answer the question, what are we going to do? After the chair states, the ayes have it, the motion is adopted, what are we going to do? We are going to have a holiday brunch fundraiser in the fall. So, all right, passes that check. Now, does it answer the question, when are we going to do it? Okay, in the fall. But when in the fall? Is the intent to host it once the spiced pumpkin latte makes its debut? Or are you aligning it to maybe the collegiate calendar, which the fall semester starts in August? So it's kind of broad as to when in the fall. So it kind of doesn't really pass that check. Might be a little yellow. Another thing to think about, holiday brunch. Is it around a holiday? Or is the theme a holiday? And if it's the theme is a holiday, what holiday? Are there any other diagnostic questions that you could think of when you're looking at this motion to evaluate, is this motion complete, concise, and accurate? You could type in the chat or come off mute and think about what are some things that when you look at this motion, what time is the event? Right. Exactly that. Is that spelled out in the motion? Where? It's good. And so we think about if this motion was before the assembly, people would have all these different questions. And now we have debate, or, people are a little hesitant. Yeah, is there a fee? It's a fundraiser, so why not in the motion put when, where, things like that nature. So now all of those questions we need to make sure we have it in the motion so people feel comfortable in adopting the motion. So you can amend the motion, which it's very similar to have an opportunity to change the wording of a motion to make it concise and clear to make sure that you're able to get what you want done. As you may know, amend is one of the most widely used subsidiary motions to modify the wording of a pending motion before the assembly. So we want to amend the motion to get it just right. Before we dive into amend, as all of you know who are RPs or you're studying for your PRP, it's critical to know the standard descriptive characteristics of the motions. So we're going to launch a poll and give you an opportunity to just do a quick knowledge check and be able to know, is this motion in order when another has the floor? So is it an interrupting motion? Well, that's the poll launched. Let me know if the poll launched, that you can answer the questions. I want to see if you're able to know, can it be seconded?
Can everybody see the poll? Because I don't see anybody participating.
It's not
I-
up. It's
I
not
don't
up
see the
yet.
poll.
It's coming. It's not up yet.
All right, I'll give you a second. Okay, I see the poll is up.
It's
Okay.
up.
Thank you. There are 5 questions in the poll. I
You
don't
let
see
me know
anybody
when you
answer
have
the
a good
question.
number.
Okay, there we go.
It's rolling in now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, about half of the people.
Okay.
If everyone has a chance to participate, that would be great.
Are we about at 50%?
Michelle, you're not seeing the poll. I'm not sure if you have to check on another screen.
Give you a moment to.
Mm.
30 more seconds. Okay, we will close the poll. Stop sharing. Did my computer stop sharing? Let's see if I can.
Yes, your presentation stopped sharing. The poll result is still up.
Okay. Okay.
Do you see the results?
Right, there was, yep, okay. All right. So can the motion to interrupt, we have an 81% no, 19% yes. Requires a second. Looks like we all agreed 100%. Is the motion debatable? 95% yes, 5% no, amendable. And we have a spread on the, we got a spread on the vote needed. Okay, so let's look at each of the elements. Right. First off, can the motion be interrupted? No. In order to amend the motion, you must seek recognition, so it cannot interrupt. It does require a second. It is debatable, but it's only if the motion is that it's relating to is debatable. So amend is undebatable whenever the motion that is being amended is undebatable. So for the most part, it is debatable. Yes, it is amendable. That's another one that also has a little caveat, which we're going to talk about in a moment when we talk about primary and secondary amendments. The motion to amend can be amended if it is the primary amendment. A secondary amendment cannot be amended to make it a tertiary amendment. So generally, yes, amend can be amendable. And the vote required is majority, regardless of the vote required for the motion that is pending before the assembly. So it is a majority vote to adopt, amend, and it can be reconsidered. So when we look at to amend a motion, it just means you're really modifying or changing the meaning of the motion within limits. Because as we know, most everything in Roberts, it's all about germaneness. We can't decide that we're going to go left and make an amendment to go right if it's not relatable. Certain motions can't be amended. Can someone type in the chat? What are some examples of motions that cannot be amended? We're going to use our parliamentary knowledge today. It's going to be interactive and dusting off some of those, if you're those RPs out there that are preparing for the RP or PRP, or you're an RP and you are just staying right there, we're still going to utilize those muscles. So we have adjourn, previous question, motion to adjourn. Yep. Any others? We can think about raise a question of privilege, lay on the table. And another little quick hint would be you can look at the 10 pages, 46 and 47, list motions which are not debatable and amendable. Yep, point of order is another one. And again, the amendment must be germane or relevant to the pending motion. So there are three basic component processes for amending. You can either insert or add words, that's one. The other option is maybe you need to strike out words. Maybe there's something in there that the main motion is causing a swirl. We just need to strike it out and maybe everyone will be aligned. Or maybe we need to do a combo, strike out some words and insert words. One thing to remember when you are amending a motion, it is important to say exactly where in the motion the change is to be made and precisely what words to use. Kind of give you an example. We have our main motion, but someone says, I want to amend by inserting on a Sunday. Where? I mean, or if they say, I want to amend the motion to include on a Sunday. Where do you want that? Are you saying it are you adding it to the end? Or is there anywhere in that particular sentence you want to add those words? As we know, when we think about parliamentary procedure, it is about being very clear and concise. And when you are the chair, you know, it's very helpful when makers of the motion or your assembly is very clear on what they want. And so by saying, I move to amend the motion to include on a Sunday, it's kind of vague. Where does it go? Again, when you're amending, you want to be very precise in where you would like for it to go. So to precisely state the amendment with off of our main motion, where do you want it to go? You want to insert on a Sunday after the word fundraiser. That way it's very clear to the presiding officer as well as to the assembly what the motion is that the amendment they're about to vote on. So that's where the chair would state after a member has made the amendment. Again, we said it needs a second. It is moved and seconded to amend inserting on a Sunday after fundraiser. So we've stated the amendment. But now here's where it can get tricky with amending because people get confused. What am I voting on? Because you want to state what the amendment is and share with the audience, the assembly, what will the effect of that amendment, if adopted, how will that impact the main motion? So if the amendment is adopted, the main motion will read that we will have a holiday fundraiser on a Sunday in the fall. You don't leave it there. You want to remind people, what exactly are we voting on right now? Right now, it's just the amendment. We're not even touching the main motion right now. The question is on inserting on a Sunday after fundraiser. Are you ready for the question? So we're very clear on what we are amending. What we're voting on right now is the amendment. The main motion is just taking a little break. So we've had the amendment. It's been moved and seconded. Now we're ready for debate. Common pitfall is that the group will start debating on the merits of the main motion. Again, you as the chair need to make sure that at this time, the discussion stays related to the amendment. And in this situation, only thing we're talking about is on a Sunday. We don't need to talk about, well, what's the theme? What's the cost? That relates to the main motion right now on a Sunday. It's all we should be talking about. After we're done discussing, debating the amendment, it's time to vote. Again, as you know, as the presiding officer, it is important to make sure you are letting the assembly know clearly where we are in the voting process. What are we voting on? So state the motion again, the amendment as you stated before. The amendment, the question is on inserting the words on a Sunday. State what the main motion will be if amended, and be very specific on, at this point, we are only discussing the amendment. That is what the vote is on. So sometimes I know when you're in meetings, it can get a little confusing on what are we voting on? Making sure you're very clear on, you state the amendment, what is the proposed wording, amended motion with the amendment adopted. But right now, it's only on the amendment. And then you vote. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Now, the amendment is adopted. Are we done? Has the motion been disposed of? No. Again, we've only dealt with the amendment. Now we bring the main motion back into play. But it's now the motion is as amended. So the ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The question is now on the main motion as amended that we have a holiday brunch fundraiser on a Sunday in the fall. You can, at this point, proceed with further debate or even have another amendment proposed. So sometimes what ends up happening when I see people, what they're doing an amendment, they vote on the amendment. If the amendment is adopted, they feel like the main motion is adopted. No, it's just the amendment. Then you vote on the motion as adopted. So those are the steps when you're inserting regarding an amendment. Next thing you may do, maybe you need to strike out some words. And in this situation, we're going to strike out the word holiday. So a member makes the amendment, another member seconds. Now the question is on striking out holiday. If the amendment is adopted, the main motion will read that we will have a brunch fundraiser in the fall. The question is on striking out holiday. Are you ready for the question? Again, you state what the proposed amendment will be as amended. And then right now, the only thing we're discussing is the amendment. We've gone through the process of inserting words and striking out. You would do the same thing, make the ayes have it, the amendment is adopted. The question is now on, and you process it that way. Now let's combine it together. Let's do strike and insert together, strike out and insert. Type in the chat and the amendment if we want to strike out holiday brunch and insert sneaker ball. The main motion is at the top. So type in the chat, how would you move to amend the motion by striking out holiday brunch and inserting sneaker ball into the main motion of I move that we have a holiday brunch fundraiser in the fall. Okay, in your motion, I want you to utilize strikeout and insert. So how do you see? We have a couple. Sabra, I move to amend the motion by striking out holiday brunch and inserting sneaker ball. That's correct. So we're very specific in what we want. We're going to strike out holiday brunch and we're going to insert sneaker ball. So good job there. Now, someone likes to come off mute and let's role play how this would sound in thinking about the steps that we discussed on how to process an amendment. Very similar with strikeout and insert. So we have the amendment, which is I move to amend by striking out holiday brunch and inserting sneaker ball. Anyone want to volunteer to process the amendment and then the main motion as amended? Any volunteers, or we can be voluntold?
I'll volunteer.
Okay,
It has been moved and seconded to amend by striking out holiday brunch and inserting sneaker ball. If adopted, the motion will read that that we have a sneaker ball fundraiser in the fall.
okay. And what would you say after that?
Are you ready for the question?
Are we voting? So I'm confused. So are we voting on the main motion as amended?
No,
You go back to stating what
Yes.
you just said in the very beginning?
we will now vote on whether we will process the question is now on the amendment of striking out holiday brunch and inserting sneaker ball.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, all right.
Are we ready for the question?
Okay, we're done with debate. Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna assume that the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No.
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 The ayes have it. We will strike out holiday brunch and insert sneaker ball. The motion is now on having a sneaker ball fundraiser in the fall. Is there any discussion?
Good job. How did you feel?
I almost forgot the words, but yeah, I kind of
But
knew
you
the
got the
but wasn't
gist
saying
of it.
I have to say
Exactly. It seems like it's a lot of talking because you're like, I've stated the amendment, state the motion, state the amendment again, but it keeps it easy for everyone to know what we're voting on. But no, you did a great job and you processed the motion, the ayes have it, the amendment is adopted, and you went straight into the amended main motion. And at that point, are there any questions? It's either voted up, voted down, or there could be other amendments processed at that time. So good job. Any questions about inserting, strikeout, and insert? See, it's just really just dealing with one step at a time. Once the amendment hits the spotlight, that's where you focus. The main motion is taking a little recess. It's taking a breather over here. Focus on the amendment. Now, remember I said we could go up another level and do a secondary amendment. Sometimes that may kind of get a little overwhelming with people because they're like, wait a minute, we have a primary amendment. I'm already nervous on that one. And then now you're going to add a secondary amendment. Whoa, that's a lot. Again, one thing at a time. It's like whichever topic, whichever motion has the spotlight, that's where we focus on. Then everything else sits there waiting to come back on stage.
PRP Jenkins,
Uh-huh.
we have one question
Okay.
that may be relevant to what you just did. So before you move,
Okay.
Ellen, did you want to have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just was wondering if you could provide just some quick tips of how to keep track, right? Because we were just talking about how it could get confusing. And do you use any specific tools or anything like that to keep track of amendments and processing the motions?
One big thing, if you are presiding or even if you're serving as a parliamentarian, scripts. And how many of you have purchased the script writing books? Those are very helpful, but writing scripts are very helpful. And then you can have like a blank sheet. You can have like a template for processing an amendment. So then you just fill it in as you go. It's very important, I think, and helpful to have your motions and amendments submitted in writing. That way it helps you to keep focus on what exactly the wording is and to get the wording correct. and just writing or just keeping a sheet that you're able to write the main motion and then what's amended and to keep track where you are. But it really is important to either have some paper in front of you. Motion scripts are always very helpful. I'm pretty sure PBC or someone in the future may have a workshop on script writing because that helps you a lot. And another big thing is just keep practice and always just keep in the mindset of just focus on one thing at a time. If you start to get overwhelmed, just take a deep breath and just think, okay, get centered on where are we at right now? Okay, we're right on the amendment. With Roberts, what do? We focus on one thing at a time. So all we're going to focus on right now is the amendment. And so if you're writing that out, that's all you need to really worry about right now is the amendment. And then glance down on what was the main motion. So that way, when you say, if adopted, the motion will now read. But at that point, we go back to the amendment. That's all we need to focus on right now. Just focus on the amendment. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And I'll just add one thing just very quickly. One of the things that I've seen is when you're writing them down is to write the main motion at the bottom of the page. And so we know that the main motion is at the bottom of that hierarchy. And so we know amend is above that. So whatever the amendment is made, write that above it. And then you kind of write them down going up and then you check them off going back down. That is another thing that I think could be helpful as well.
And then also, so that's like the perfect setup to what I was going to talk about for when you're doing the primary secondary amendment. It's like climbing that ladder. You're going to go up that ladder one rung at a time. You're not going to go from the top of the rung and then just be like, you know what, I'm just going to jump all the way down to the bottom of the ladder. Probably not going to happen. It's not going to turn out well. You go up one rung at a time. You're going to go down one step at a time. So it's very important. If you have a blank sheet of paper, to start that way, start at the bottom and then just keep going up and just cross off as you're going one step at a time. You don't say, oh, well, I'm on the secondary amendment. Let me go down to the primary, go down to the main motion. No, you missed a step and then you just go right on back down. So it is very helpful to just, you have to start from the bottom and then just keep working up. Anyone have any other ideas, suggestions, best practices to share? Okay. Right. So now we're going to get into primary and secondary amendments. And this is why, as the chair, it's really important to be organized. Don't get flustered. Maintain your composure. If you start to get nervous, again, the amendment that were before us is the one that you're focused on. So when you get to your secondary amendment, that's what we focus on. And if someone decides that they want to amend the secondary amendment, they can't. Like, sorry, but it's just a primary and secondary. And how that would look, kind of going with our example. The primary amendment is I move to amend by striking out fundraiser in the fall. And let's say through debate, someone says, wait, no, hold up. I want to keep fundraiser in the motion. We can get rid of the in the fall part. So they move to amend the amendment, in essence, by striking out fundraiser. So now that's the secondary amendment. Right now, remember we have the main motion is on hold. Right now, we move the primary amendment is sitting on the bench over there with the main motion. Spotlight right now is on secondary amendment. I move to amend by striking out fundraiser, and it's seconded, and you process that motion. The question is now, you process the secondary amendment. Question is, it has been moved and seconded to amend by striking out fundraiser. If adopted, the amendment will read, the amendment will read to amend by striking out in the fall. Question is on the adoption of the amendment, striking out fundraiser. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. You go back now to the primary amendment because we've done the secondary amendment to keep fundraiser in our main motion, because right now the primary amendment is amended. The question is now on the primary amendment as amended to amend by striking out in the fall. Are you ready for the question? So as you see, we started with the secondary amendment, what that wording was, and how does that impact the first primary amendment? We still haven't even touched the main motion. Right now, we just need to know, okay, so we've amended the primary motion. And then we move on to the main motion as amended, which would be that we have a brunch fundraiser. Okay. Now, how many of you are the secretary of an organization? And you're like, wait, that's a lot of stuff to be writing down. And as remember, when you are the secretary, the minutes is not an opportunity to where you got to dictate everything. It is an opportunity for you to record the business that transacted. When there's amendments, you don't go into the details. You just write the amended motion, the motion as amended. You don't have to write all of everything that happened. You may say after debate or after discussion, the amended motion was to put that in there. So that's another thing, another little caveat to remember is when you are the secretary, you do want to keep track as well. But at the end, you want to make sure that you are capturing the motion as amended, not as the motion that was originally presented. Any questions about primary and secondary amendments? Okay. Right, so we have amend. Let's try another way to perfect your motion. Let's look at substitute. And a substitute motion, it's another form of amendment, and it's applied when you just say, you know what, I don't like this motion. And if we're having to make changes in different places and they're non-consecutive in the motion, you're like, you know what, let's just scrap it and start over, versus you could amend one or two words here, then you do another amendment and do amendments that way. Why not just substitute? Get it right without having to do multiple amendments. So we'll launch the poll one more time. And let's see what you know about the standard descriptive characteristics of substitute. Can it be a motion that is interrupting? Can I just shout out and say, I move to substitute, or do I have to seek recognition? Is it debatable? Is it amendable? What's the vote requirement? And can it be reconsidered? When we get to are we about at 50, 60%?
We're at 40%.
Okay.
I was gonna say almost.
Almost.
We're at 50%. Actually,
Okay.
we're at 60%.
All right. Everyone had an opportunity to submit and participate. All right. Let's share the results. I think we probably did good this time. I got a feeling. Okay, can this motion interrupt? 95% say no. Requires a second. 96% said yes. Okay. Is the motion debatable? Okay, we'll all stand united on that one. It's yes. Okay, is the motion amendable? 83% say yes, 17% say no. Okay. And the vote, we have 87% majority and 2/3, 13%. It's amazing. No one decided that the chair would be the one to decide. Okay. All right. So the answers. Yes, this one does require recognition. It's not an interrupting motion. It does require a second. It is debatable when the motion being amended is debatable. Same thing with amendable. And this motion can be amendable requires a majority vote. So you can, let's see, I think we got that one right, and may be reconsidered. All right, so we'll keep practicing on our standard characteristics, descriptive characteristics, very critical in helping you be a great parliamentarian, as well as a great presiding officer, but also, more importantly, also being a great member, because it's good for you to know this information as well. It helps you help that presiding officer preside with ease and confidence. I'm just putting that plug in for all of those presiding officers out there. We love it when our members are well-informed and parliamentary experts as well. All right, so back to the program. So when we think about substitute, it's treated similarly to a motion to strike out an insert. And again, it must be germane to the original motion. We can't just decide that, you know what, I just want to come up with something totally different, not even related to fundraisers. That's not going to work. Again, it has to be germane to the main motion. And if you are the chair, you can gladly say your motion is not in order at this time. And you can say it with a smile, and that way they don't get offended. But again, must be germane to the original motion. So our original main motion is to have a holiday brunch fundraiser in the fall. But maybe one says, you know, we did a holiday brunch and, you know, I don't think we're gonna do well this year because the last 2 years it hasn't been that great. So maybe someone decides they want to do a chili cook-off because they are hearing the big buzz of the chili cook-off. And this time, when they present their substitute motion, they are being very clear that we have a chili cook-off fundraiser on Saturday, November 2nd. So they move to amend that by substituting. It's been seconded. And now if you're the chair, you're like, what do I do now? Right? So some of you may know, or some of you may be like, okay, you know what? Not a problem, because why? You have a script, or you could utilize the presidentially speaking script writing book. So there's plenty of tools out there. Utilize them, as well as your 12th edition of Roberts. Okay. So when you're doing the main motion, whenever you are substituting, this is what the script would look like. It's a lot. Give you a moment to read it. But the main thing to remember when you are substituting is that you, as the chair, you will want to remind the assembly that it's preferable to take amendments to the pending motion first, so they can perfect the main motion. And then once that is done, then they can perfect the substitute motion. So it's a little bit different process. I almost think of like if you're revising your bylaws, where it's like everything is open to amendment. So you get to perfect the main motion, and then you get to perfect the substitute motion. You debate it, and then it becomes the thing of which one shall. First, you have to ask them, are we going to accept the substitute motion? So after you want to make sure that, is this what we want to do? And then let's say that's adopted, and then the chair would go into, then you would just process it that way. So you would vote on the amendment, which is the question is on the motion to substitute. So you want to know, hey, do we want to substitute the main motion with this new chili cook-off? And if that's the case, then that will become the motion pending before the assembly. So yes, and then you vote on the main motion. So shall we have this chili cook-off? Yes. And then you vote on the motion to have the chili cook-off. So the only difference with substitute, you get an opportunity to perfect the main motion, then you get to perfect the substitute motion. And then after you got them both where you want them, you want to know, do we substitute the substitute motion for the main motion? Yes, we do. So now we vote on what was that substitute motion if it was amended. So this time now, we are not having a holiday brunch. We are having a chili cook-off. So that's how we would do substitute. It's a lot of wording, but the script writing helps, but it really is just making sure you give the assembly opportunity. They get to pretty much perfect the motions. And then once it's perfected, you read both of them so they're really clear on which one do we want to go with? And then you say, okay, shall we substitute motion number 2 for motion number 1? If you do, then number 2 now becomes the motion in front of the assembly. So very similar to the previous, how we've done amendments. You just keep everything a little bit in order, but with the substitute, you got a little bit more opportunity to really perfect it, fine tune it, and get all that information in that motion that you need before you decide which fundraiser or which motion you're going to go with. So the last part we're going to talk about is division of a question. Sometimes have you been in a meeting and you're like, wait, that motion, there's a lot to unpack right there. I like part, but I don't like the other part. And I don't really want to vote yes in favor of the motion because I'm not really in favor of the motion in full. So that's where you can divide the question. So with division of a question, just like the others, it requires recognition. It's not an interrupting motion, does require a second. It's not debatable, but it is amendable and requires majority vote to be adopted, and it cannot be reconsidered. So looking at our main motion, you got to think, okay, when you want to divide a motion, it has to have pretty much 2 separate thoughts. They can stand independent. When we look at our main motion, can this motion be divided? And if it can, how would you divide the motion? Any takers? Anyone, what do you think? Can this motion be divided? If it can, how would you divide it? What would be the 2 separate thoughts?
I'll take a stab at it.
Uh-huh.
I think technically it could be divided because you could have a motion to have a holiday brunch and you could have a motion to have a fundraiser in the fall, which would be how it could be divided. I think that would tend to be very, very, in this particular case, I think it would be very problematic to try to do it that way. And I'd probably not attempt it.
And I think that your approach is correct. When you feel like it's problematic, it's really not 2 separate thoughts. Like this one, it could, but I would err on the side that this would not be one that a division of a question, because it's really a fundraiser in the fall. It's kind of, it could be, but it kind of really doesn't stand on its own. So let's kind of change it up a little bit and have the holiday brunch fundraiser in the fall, and that we give funds raised to the local community center. So now you may be like, wait a minute. I thought we wanted to work with the animal shelter, and that's where I'd rather the funds go. So I'm not comfortable voting in favor of this motion because I like having the fundraiser, but I don't like where it's going. How would you separate this one out? It's a little bit easier, right? You would just do everything up until the end and then the second half. So you kind of have 2 separate thoughts, but they can stand alone. We have the holiday brunch fundraiser in the fall. That's one motion. And then you can have the separate one. Where are we giving the funds to? Because that may be a determining factor of if someone votes yes or no in favor or against the motion. So that would be how you get 2 separate thoughts. So it'd just be the question is on the division. You wanted the division so that you have, your 2 separate thoughts, so that we have a holiday brunch fundraiser in the fall and that we give funds raised to the local community center. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those opposed say no. So yes, you want to vote aye because yes, I want to divide those 2 thoughts out, to make those 2 separate motions. So then it'd be the ayes have it, the motion is adopted, the question will be divided. And then you go through each question. Each of those motions are now its own question. So we go through, have the brunch fundraiser, and then, because that motion may get amended, or maybe it gets a substitute motion. And then you have your second thought of where the fund's going to go. So we've covered a lot, but I know we've done three types of motions that to amend that may be a little bit tricky, or some gets a little confusing, especially with amending. As we know, sometimes the motions that are stated, it may sound good, but as you start thinking about it and doing a diagnostic check of that motion, you realize, hey, wait a minute, we're missing some critical elements. So how do we perfect that motion? If the chair has already stated the motion, it belongs to the assembly. So we could either withdraw it or before the chair states the motion, the maker of the motion may withdraw the motion. But let's say we've already started having debate on the motion, you can amend it, get it just right and very clear in what you are wanting to do. The process may seem laborious. However, just remember to handle every piece one step at a time. The last part that you're at, if you are at the secondary amendment, we're going to focus on the secondary amendment. The primary and the main motion, they're on hold right now. Focus on the primary amendment. Then you move down to the primary amendment. And then we go back to the main motion as amended. With substitution, it's an opportunity to perfect the main motion and get all the details in there that you need. And then you also have the opportunity to perfect the amended motion, the one that is proposed, the substitute motion. Once we get both of them right where everyone's great, there's no more debate, you ask pretty much, are we going to keep the substitute motion as the motion, or do we go back to the primary? Assembly says we're going to go with the substitute motion. Great, then we vote on that. Yes, we're going to do it. And then now that becomes the main motion and that you would process. Division of a question. If there's two separate thoughts that can stand alone, make those two motions and you're able to vote on them individually. Are there any questions in our pit stop that we have with diagnosing and fine-tuning a motion? And I'll stop sharing so I can see everybody.
Wait, I have a quick question while others may be putting theirs in the chat.
Okay.
In terms of division of the question, what you as a presiding officer, what would you say? What language would you use when you realize that it's not a good choice? Because you don't want to think, you don't want that person to think that they can't put forth their motion, right? So what would you say to them to help them understand that it's just not a good way to divide?
Very similar to anytime any other motion is presented that is not in order at this time. It would be helpful, even as the chair, you can even be nice and take it as a moment to give some coaching. And you're not obligated, but I think it's always helpful for the chair to explain why. And this way people are more educated so they know, okay, next time I know what to do. I think that's always something that helps. I think it's one thing to just say your motion is not in order at this time or the amendment. And now people are like, wait, I don't understand. Take that moment to give them some parliamentary coaching, and that will pay dividends in the future.
Thank you, PRP Jenkins. RP Thompson.
So I had a question. It's kind of along the lines of that, but let's say you're the parliamentarian of the organization, and maybe the president or even the rest of the body is not as well versed in division of the question, and you're supposed to remain silent. So what would you say the best practice is to educate, and how would you go about that?
And I think that's always one of the things when you're serving as the parliamentarian, to have a great relationship with the presiding officer. And that way you understand that you are the consultant to the chair as well as to the assembly. And again, it's a great opportunity to just kindly maybe get the attention of the chair, and and either providing as an opportunity for giving them the information. But I think that's always the thing of just kind of giving them the information of just, parliamentary knowledge of this is why it can't be done. But again, at the end of the day, like you said, it is it's the chair that ultimately decides, but the parliamentarian is kind of serving as that consultant to the chair as well as the assembly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? There was a lot of content tonight. How many people have been in a meeting and have experienced division of the question? Has anyone ever tried that, or has anyone ever seen it processed before?
I PRP, Alan, I've been in a meeting where division of the question was presented. Thank goodness I did not. I was not chairing that meeting. It can be very tricky,
Yeah.
but I've seen it done, and she actually did it very skillfully. And it helped the motion pass by separating it. So that's the beauty of using that motion, because sometimes if you don't take that into consideration, the whole motion may fail. So
Right.
if you take it into consideration and learn how to process it properly, you run the chance of saving the actual motion, and both may pass, or at least the most important part may pass. So I've seen it done, but no, I haven't had to process that.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Then I have a follow-up question to that. So let's say, like you said, like there's two parts that they're not going to be in favor of. So they vote no, the motion fails. Can I offer up another motion with the same motion that we just adopted? Can I just decide to offer up another motion?
I love that question. I love a good question.
I think no. I think it's settled, right?
You think it's settled?
Uh,
Say it with your chest. Yes.
Yes, it's settled.
Settled rule. Yes. Yes. And where do you find out about the settled rule? Where's information about the settled rule?
would be, I was just going to say before you got to that, you could reconsider the question.
Yep. Yep. So the settled rule information is in the little yellow book, in brief. But a little trick is, I believe it's 1225 is where the information is. It kind of references a little bit in Roberts, but in brief is where it actually talks about the settled rule, or you could reconsider the vote. So yeah. Yes.
Well, I know we are at the top of the hour, or the bottom of the hour. I want to just say thank you to PRP Jenkins for a chock full hour of content. Very, very informative. I hope everyone, this is always my hope, that you take something away from a PBC learning opportunity that you didn't know when you came in. So hopefully there's some nuggets that she shared tonight that are new to you, and we encourage you to go to your Roberts and your in brief and look up those topics and get a little bit more in depth and try them out. We want you to encourage you to use these. And I think one of the things that we'll look to do is to try to put together a practicum. I know that our District 2 director is very into those. And so I think that that's something that the opportunity to practice these is really where it helps us to solidify that knowledge. So just want to again say thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. There's a link in the chat for an evaluation. We definitely want to provide PRP Jenkins with any feedback on her session tonight. And then for those of you who are credentialed members, please be sure to use the CEU form so we can make sure that you get your CE units under the new NAP guidelines. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Wish everyone a great day tomorrow. Hopefully you're off and don't have to work, and a good week until we see you again in 2 months for our next. Oh wait, we have to, Ellen, do we need to pump up our? Okay, so last 30 seconds, Ellen, please. Do you want to pump up our Parliamentary Law Month event?
Absolutely. I was so excited. I totally forgot to put it in the chat, but give me a second to do that. But I do want to make sure everyone is aware that we are featuring Tim Nguyen, PRP, for our Parliamentary Law Month as our guest presenter. I just put in the chat. Let me make sure it's still circling. Yep, just put it in the chat. We are very excited. This is a fundraiser for our unit, and he is going to give an awesome presentation about navigating RONR. If you've seen that presentation, it's excellent, beyond excellent, right? So I want to make sure everyone registers. There is a small nominal fee. Again, it's our fundraiser, and we're very, very excited. Did I leave anything out? I don't think so. And the CEUs for that is pending. We will get them, trust and believe. So just go ahead and register. Just trust us on this. Just go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, VP Reeves. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you again in April. If you have an LO or PDO coming up in the interim, please invite us. We'd like to show you some support and learn from you as well. So have a good one, be safe, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Good night.